Hello and welcome to Retech, and today we're going to have a look at a machine that I've already got a fair few of, but not of this variant. You see, it says ZX Spectrum, and I know what you're going to say, don't you have enough ZX Spectrums? And yeah, the honest answer is probably yes, but this is a variant that I don't have. This is a 16K model. They were kind of very few and far between when you compare them to the 48K machine, because that really became the standard. And finding 16K models that haven't been upgraded or kind of messed with to boost their capacity with DIY repairs or DIY upgrades or even commercial ones, it's very difficult to find them. So what I did is I went online and I did the usual. I kind of blind bought a ZX Spectrum. This one was listed as untested, which usually means broken. It didn't have anything in its description other than basically a single sentence saying it was for sale, it was 16K, it came complete in its box and so on, and that was it. Nothing else. No, I've tested it and I found that it doesn't work, or it gets a white screen, or there's black bars, or whatever the issue is with it. So I decided, you know, it'd be nice to take a bit of a punt, basically buy this to show people whether or not it's worth buying something sight unseen, untested, broken from eBay or other auction sites, and then find out if it's worthwhile repairing them, if they can be repaired, what comes with them, is it actually financially viable, or is it just better to go out and buy a working model of your choice. Now, being a bit of a hobbyist, it's nice to buy broken ones to repair, to fix, to find out what makes them tick, what goes wrong with them, and if it is at all possible to repair them. But if you're not kind of that way inclined, then you know you're probably better off buying a complete working machine with no issues, and then you can just take it out of the box and enjoy it as soon as you get it. But you know, they're getting further and further apart, these working machines, because you normally see now things listed on eBay, other auction sites, Sell My Retro and all this stuff that says not tested, not fully tested, selling as parts because we can't test it fully, and so on and so forth. So you know, there are very few sellers out there who say I fully tested it, it works, it's 100% right, and so on. Most of what I can see that's kind of left on the market at reasonable prices for people starting off are the untested, the machines with faults, the machines where people have gotten them out of the attic or whoever's attic and realize that they don't know enough about them to test them anyway, so they just list them as spares or repair. And that seems to be the normal kind of way now. So we're going to take a look at this machine. We're going to literally find out what I've got, what it came with, what condition it's in, and what it needs. So let's take a quick dive into the world of untested on these websites. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so you'll see we have a Sinclair ZX Spectrum on the desk here, and at first glance it came with this ZX Spectrum guide for games, or typing games for your ZX Spectrum, which I think's fairly rare now. It's full of listings, including really what were definite rip-offs of Pac-Man in there, so just to type them in yourself and get them running. Looking at the listings, they appear to be kind of more based on probably an earlier book that he did, based on the ZX81, because it's not using anything really in the form of graphics, is it really? So it looks like it's just character generated based. So yeah, it might be interesting to do, but you know, it's something for a little later. But that came with the machine, which is quite nice. And then we've got the what you always wanted to know about your home computer, but never dared to ask. I mean, remember back in the early 80s, people were frightened of finding out about these machines, or frightened about looking a bit silly by asking the wrong questions. And these kind of books came out saying basically, what can microcomputers do? And it'll give you a whole list of things that a micro could do. So yeah, so it's quite a nice piece of history. It's quite a nice piece of nostalgia. It even goes into a little bit of detail about the silicon chips, what RAM is, you know, what's inside a chip, and you know, so on. So yeah, including what does a computer understand. I think we've come a little bit along the path from when this was first kind of envisaged about what a computer can understand. But whether understanding is the right word or not, that's up for debate. But anyway, yeah, it's nice to look back to the early 80s and find out what we did or didn't know, including planning a program, flowcharting. This is the kind of thing you learned in computer studies back in the late 70s, early 80s when you were at school, when you were about 10 or 11 years old. So yeah, it's quite a nice little nostalgia piece. It also came with the ZX Spectrum introduction, which a lot of people have seen. This one looks in remarkable condition, nice clean paper. It's been stored very, very well. It hasn't yellowed or faded, unlike this one here. And then the basic programming manual, which, to be honest, is one of the most comprehensive manuals you will ever find with a home computer. It massively comprehensive. It covers every bit of detail that you could ever ask to be able to start programming on a Sinclair ZX Spectrum. So yeah, that's nice to have these. These are what come in the box. So I'm wondering why they couldn't put these back in the box when they shipped it, but it was kind of shipped separately on the front of here. So now we're going to get to the main kind of menu, really, or the main attraction, which is the Sinclair ZX Spectrum itself. It's still got the original grey keyboard on the front. They didn't do many of those, and if you can get hold of one, they're very rare, so try and keep it if you can. Again, around the side we have its 16K version, and then literally the how to plug everything into it to get it to work, which doesn't change from the 48K, 16K version, etc. It's all roughly the same. It's literally what you have in the box. It doesn't hide anything. It's unpretentious. It just tells you you need the things in blue to buy yourself. It doesn't come with it. The rest of it in white comes with the machine, which is brilliant. So with today's kind of, I would call slightly dodgy marketing practices where they promise everything and deliver only half of it, this is a fantastic way of doing things. It's basically so out in the open that you cannot say that you didn't know what you were getting. Okay, so your pack includes your Spectrum personal computer, a mains adapter, leads and plugs for connection to a TV and a cassette recorder, full instructions, 2 computing course manuals and a demonstration cassette. So it'd be nice to see if we actually got all of this in the box. So I'll try and get it out without ripping it because it is very fragile. So we're just going to slide it out without damaging anything. Okay, so we'll just put the box to one side, which has kind of seen better days, and really so has this broken polystyrene. Emblazoned Sinclair in it. It's very kind of low cost packaging, but you know, it was of the time. And this is what we have in the box. We have the very dusty ZX Spectrum with the white lettering worn off on there, so it has been used. It hasn't just been stuck away in the corner. So we'll take a look at what else is in the box. So we have the Spectrum here, followed by a nicely wrapped up RF lead. So it's been looked after at some point. The Spectrum software catalogue, which is the May 1983 edition, including this picture which most of us have seen in magazines, etc. of the time. and what you could buy and what you could get for your brand new acquisition. So that's nice. Okay, looks like it was probably used as a games machine. 3D Space Wars by Hewson Consultants. W.H. Smith cassette. Black and white cover on there, so it's one of the early ones from Hewson Consultants. So that would be nice to have a go at later. And then we have the Scion products, which are very generally well presented, very well presented. Full colour cassettes, full colour inlays, everything really nicely done. So not sure if I ever played that, but it'd be nice to see if it works at some point. And then again, a very well presented Horizons tape for the Spectrum, again by Scion, and it was basically endorsed by Sinclair. So again, everything that Sinclair did or endorsed had to be of a certain standard. He had a certain look and feel that he wanted for all of his products. And then in the bottom of here we have the cassette lead. It looks like it's been in the box for a very long time. It's got polystyrene melting onto it. So yeah, it's been a pretty much well used machine by the looks of it. And then we follow it up by, I'm not sure what this is all about. This was left in the bottom, and it's melted into the bottom here. Yeah, I know what that is. That's an alternative cassette adapter or cassette lead. It's been in there quite a while. It actually stuck to the bottom of the polystyrene. So I need really to put all of these in little plastic bags before I put them away once I find out what's wrong with it. So it's nice to have that, because a lot of cassettes didn't have an ear and mic socket. They had this DIN connector. So that's nice to have. And then finally the power supply, which is all wrapped up in there. So I'll get this out in a little while. I'll do my usual, I'll check it with a proper known working power supply first, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, this is everything in the box. So yeah, he's right, whoever sold it, it was complete. It looked like it had been well used, fairly well looked after, looking by the cable ties around the cables and that, just to keep everything nice and tidy, all the twist ties. But it looks like it's been in its box for at least a decade. So let's remove these and have a quick look at the machine itself. So looking at the machine, it's hasn't been taken apart. There are no feet missing. There's what looks like possibly an issue 1 or an early board inside of it. So it may be a very, very early Spectrum board inside of a slightly later rubber keyboard. So I'm guessing this was a very early machine. 82. I think this one was produced in 1982, so it is a very, very early ZX Spectrum. Okay, so it's probably one of the first ones with a greyish keyboard in 16K mode. So looking at it further, we have the faceplate that's lifted here. It looks like it's had some tape holding it down at one point or another. Yeah, the glue is simply starting to come away with age. It looks like it's been come away for quite a while. So my first reactions is, if it does actually turn on and shows a display, I would be very, very surprised if this keyboard works. I believe probably the membrane's gone underneath of it. So we're going to have a look at that. So let's get this machine powered on with a known working power supply, and let's see what it does or doesn't do. Okay, so my hunch with this being a relatively early machine seems to have been correct. I've just took out the original power supply that came with this machine, and on the back there is a sticker, and I'll read out what it says. It says, "This unit has been rechecked since the recall of the 26th of the 2nd 83. So this is an 82 model And the reason for that being is because Sinclair had a problem with these power supplies at one point, where the tracks were too close together, and there was an issue where you could actually get a shock from them. So they did a recall on these power supplies, and it was one of the quickest turnarounds Sinclair's ever done, because they were basically, for a lot of people, turned around within 48 hours and back to the customer, or on the way back to the customer. So yeah, this is an early machine, so it may have had a rubber keypad change at some point in the past, which may account for this lifting. They probably didn't replace the metal cover on here and then just tried to reseal it, which obviously hasn't worked. And judging, if you look very closely, there is a ripple. So it may have been peeled up from this end, which caused a slight bending here. But let's see if there's any other issues with it. Okay, so let's take a look at it now. Okay, because of the sticker on the back saying that it's been refurbished or rechecked and tested back in '82, and also the general condition of it, and I did check the voltage at the power lead, I've decided that this power supply is okay, because it's only putting out just under 13 volts, which is exactly what this machine can handle without any issues, because that's 13 volts unloaded. So once you actually plug it into something, it's going to drop down to between 9 and 10 volts anyway, so that's fine. So 13 volts without a load is okay. So I've decided just to go with it. So we're just going to plug this in, and it also tests the power supply while we're at it as well. So at the end of the day, it was bought as a project and part, so if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and I have to fix it. So we haven't got a screen on at the moment, but if I press a button, I can actually hear the actual sound of the keyboard working. So more likely than not, we have a working machine. So I'm just going to go through the channels and see if we can find a decent picture on this. Okay, and there we have it. We actually have a screen, which for some reason my TV isn't actually holding a very good quality. So let's get the volume down, we don't need it. And let's just retune it, because there we go. Yeah, it's down to the LCD panel. So it seems to work, but we have an issue with the key. So, and it's 098 IOPL M symbol shift, enter and shift. And then we also have a line down here. So we have what looks like a break in the membrane. So I'm quite happy that it works. I'm quite happy that you can actually see something on the screen, which is good. It needs a little bit of fettling, so let's take it apart, find out if it's just a cracked membrane connection on this machine. So let's have a look. Hopefully we'll be able to find out exactly what's going on with it, get the parts ready for it, and then go from there. So let's take this machine apart. So unplug it first. Okay, so we're going to just unplug the ribbon cables gently as possible. First we're just going to check the cables. It looks like the the actual cables are okay, or the tails of them are okay. It's almost certainly going to be the membrane that's at fault on here, so we'll put that to one side for a minute, and we're going to have a quick look at the board. It's an issue 2 board, so yeah, so it was a very early issue 2 board. It wasn't the original grey keyboard board, but it's early enough. It's a 1982 model, or tail end of 1982, and being an issue 2 board, it has a couple of bodges. The old Spider bodge in here, and also the ULA socketed. We have the heatsink here and some extra sockets here, which makes it a lot easier to add in memory. So if you wanted to upgrade this to a 48K model. Okay, so being an issue 2 board, it's fairly easy to upgrade this to 48K, which is why I kind of often wonder why it wasn't done that way, because most people, all they needed to do was to fill this upper part of the memory here with the correct RAM chips, and then you had to fill a couple of ICs on the top, and that was it really, apart from a solder bridge here between the 2 points in between the ULA and this first IC here. So basically it was a solder bridge. So that then made this machine into a 48K machine. So really this is quite a clean early issue 2 board, and you can tell it's an earlier board because of this little bodge here with it, which goes across the Z80 processor here. So yeah, it's not a bad machine. It's in very good condition, and it must have failed, the membrane must have failed at some point for somebody to decide to literally have a go and peel up this corner here to try and find out what the problem was. It looks like they got so far and gave up, and then put the machine away, and that was it. That was the end of it. That was the end of this ZX Spectrum's kind of useful life at the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug this in again just to make sure it isn't an issue here. I'm not gonna upgrade this machine, and mainly because it's a very early issue 2. This is probably August 1982, and that's because it has the nickname of the cockroach across the CPU here, and that's, you know, kind of makes it stand out to be an early machine, as in issue 2's go, because issue 1s weren't out there that long. So the issue 1 was only really designed to take 16K on board, and you had to add a daughter board to add in any extra capacity to the memory side of it. Okay, so a lot of the time, once you were upgraded, you had a kind of a problem with the screen tinting as well, so it wasn't perfect by any means. The issue 2s came out roughly August in 1982. It was the first machine that Sinclair kind of produced to be laid out by CAD, so it didn't look hand-drawn anymore, which it was originally. So it's a CAD based PCB on here, which was an improvement over the original issue 1s. It had provision to put 48K on board, and it only needed a couple of minor solder joints to make that work, and it was very reliable. The problem is that the issue 2 kind of contained the widest range of ULA types, so depending on when the machine was produced is depending on which ULA you actually got on the machine. And it was one of the first attempts at the blue tinted keyboard here. So yeah, so this isn't an issue 1, it's not an original Spectrum, but it's close. It's within a few months of the original Spectrum issue 1 coming out. But there were very few of these produced. There were about 500,000 issue 2s that were produced before they moved on to the 3. And the 3B had a lot of changes, including the positioning of the regulator, and the clock adjustment controls were removed, and the beep is also transistor driven, which is a 40 ohm impedance instead of the 200 ohm impedance which was on this model. And they kind of standardized the ULA because it went to a 6C001E-6, which kind of made things a little bit easier. But later on in its life, the ULA used in the issue 3s fail more often, and I can actually agree with that, because the amount of ULAs I've had to replace in later model Spectrums is almost 50% of what I've got. I've had to replace the ULA. So here we have a really good condition ZX Spectrum. So I'm going to plug this keyboard back in, and I'm just going to make sure that it isn't a bit of a weak connection on here, because it feels like it's never been out of the board, because the bend here is there for life now, and same with this one. If I try to straighten these out, I will end up just completely breaking this in half. So I'm just going to place it gently back in again, which has been very, very stiff because it looks like it hasn't been out. Okay, there's one, and there's two. Okay, I'm just going to lay the board on the keyboard on top. I will plug in, take the loose screws out. I will plug in just the power supply, J, P, yep. Yeah, so I can hear clicking on just a few of these, so it's definitely a membrane issue, which I'm going to have to order. So while I'm at it, I might order the extra memory for this anyway. So I'm just going to try and gently yeah, it's loose. So by gently trying to peel this off, it's immediately apparent that it's more than likely been off before. So there's the faceplate off. It's, yeah, I can probably straighten it out, but I'd rather just get a new one. The rubber itself is okay. But this is going to be past its best, so yeah, it's got some cleaning up to do on this to get rid of the glue, etc. And this is an original membrane, so I'm just going to see if it wasn't the top causing a problem. So let's just reassemble it briefly, plug in the power. Yeah, so let's just move yeah, we have a membrane problem, so that's cool. That's an easy fix. So really, out of this, it's just a membrane and a new faceplate. Might order a new rubber keyboard as well, just to finish it off, because they're not a lot of money. So yeah, I'm quite happy that this actually is going to work. I'm not going to upgrade it. I'm going to leave it as a 16K ZX Spectrum. So there we have it. We have a 16K ZX Spectrum that just needs a little bit of TLC. I was quite lucky with this model because it works. It's an early issue 2, which I don't suspect there's many left now, especially with that cockroach nicknamed Fix across the processor there. But I also don't think there's many 16K models around anyway. They did 500,000 issue 2s, but I would be very, very surprised if out of that 500,000 issue 2s, there was not even 80 to 100,000 16K models, because that wasn't a vastly popular option. Because as soon as the Spectrum came out, and people started producing software for the 48K model. That became the baseline very quickly, and people then upgraded their machines very quickly. Very few people left them as standard 16K machines for very long. So the ZX Spectrum I have here will be refurbished. I'll get the parts for it. I'm gonna get the new membrane. I'm gonna get a brand new rubber keypad for it and a faceplate. I'm also then going to clean it up, make it look new again, and I will paint in the ZX Spectrum logo back in white again on the machine. And I want this machine to look as good as it did out of the factory, and then we'll just have a 16K game collection or software collection that we can go through sometime and see exactly what you could do with a 16K machine. So yeah, I've enjoyed looking at this. It's nice every now and again to get something that doesn't need a vast amount of work when you buy something untested, sight unseen. And you know, sometimes it's quite interesting. I mean, I wouldn't say I would have preferred a few more faults. I would have preferred something for a kind of repair point of view to be a little bit more involved, but I'm actually happy that it's not, because I wanted a 16K machine anyway for a little while, when I kind of realized that all my machines were 48K and 128K. So yeah, so I'll soon have a complete collection apart from a +3 or a working one, which I'll have to get stuck into. And I think by that time I'll have the entire Sinclair collection of computers, or Sinclair branded. So yeah, wasn't my intention, but it's just the way it happened. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed this look at what you can get on these auction sites if you're lucky, or the problems you can get involved with if you're unlucky. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'll see you again. Thank you. See you. Bye bye.